So we're good in Zoom?
Yep, we are good.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everyone to the Columbus, Ohio chapter of the American Council of the Blind of Ohio. Today is, what is today? January 13th, 2024. First of all, I want to say that this meeting is being recorded. Anything you say here will be recorded and will be posted on our Zoom, or not Zoom, what's that thing? Our YouTube channel. So again, disclaimer, this meeting is being recorded. So anything you say in this meeting, it will be posted on our YouTube channel. So welcome everyone. I hope you all had a good holiday, good New Year. Glad that we all made it over to the next adventure. First and foremost, let's take a roll call, if we could, please.
You want to start with the room or Zoom?
Start with Zoom.
Okay, so in Zoom, we have myself. Chuck Atkins is here.
Yes.
Shirley is here. Vicky Prayan is here. Michelle Spillane, Denise Bauman, and there's one person I've misnamed incorrectly. So if you're in Zoom and if I've not mentioned you, please unmute.
I think I'm unmuted, Mary.
I think yes, you're here. Okay, I think I overwrote your phone number or something, but Mary is here. Anyone else?
And Kathy Whitman.
Oh yes, I thought I had mentioned you, but I probably didn't. My list is all out of sorts right now.
Is that everyone in Zoom?
I believe so.
Okay. In the room is myself, Janae Miller.
Lee Tucker.
Erwin Hott.
There you go.
Oh.
Gail Baldwin. Carol Riddle. Julie Russell.
Mike Russell. We're speaking softly. I don't know why.
Julie and Mike Russell.
Troy Sullivan.
Ed Snively.
Yeah, that's the room.
All right. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Next thing on the agenda is meeting minutes. Did everyone get a chance to look at the meeting minutes for November? We've had some updates and some changes and some edits.
Yes, and Lee did a fantastic job in Ed's absence.
So any questions regarding the minutes? Any objections to the minutes? Any clarification regarding the minutes? If there's no,
They looked good over here.
there's no questions, clarifications, or comments, would someone like to make a motion to?
This is Sean. I so move.
Yes.
I second it.
This is Ed. I just wanted to thank Lee for filling in me in November.
Yes. Thank you, Lee. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and I hope to never do it again.
Okay.
I know the feeling.
Okay. So who made the motion?
I motioned and Chuck seconded the motion.
So, motion made by Sean, seconded by Gail. All in favor, say aye. Any nays?
Aye.
The motion has passed and the minutes have been cleared. So next on the agenda is the wonderful treasurer's report.
I did it again.
All right, Mr. Tucker, you're up.
Well, up front, I want to mention it's going to be a little lengthy, and I hope not to put everybody to sleep. But anyway, tragically, a lot of effort goes into this. Anyway, so this is the financial report to start with, and then the budget will follow. At least I think that's the order. So this is the report for the period ending January 12th, and that covers December 9th through January 12th. The checking account balance is $17,274.18, which is a decrease of $477.67. Thank God that balanced. And deposits were memberships, $105.87. Network for Good, 19. ACB Ohio auction and proceeds. Thank you, Michelle. I had no idea how we got that, but there it is. And donations of $200. Expenses, ACB Ohio memberships, $460 in checks were sent to them. We paid Clinton Heights Lutheran Church here $240 for the first 6 meetings of the year. A charge card payment was made of $11.43. Marilyn Pifo is currently doing Sunshine Committee duties, and she bought some envelopes and stamps for $15.88. And engagement benefit cash was funded for another $150. And AT&T, that's the monthly $16.11 that we always get charged. A resolve check for $35 that's taken care of, and we have an outstanding balance of checks that didn't get counted yet in the Huntington Bank account of $45.88. The charge card, it's the new kid on the block, had a starting balance of $150, which was Sunshine Committee cards. Payments made $22.86. And a new charge at the Christmas dinner for $1,831.87. And a website called Tax Mandate for $8.50 because of the CPR class and a 1099 form. Payment, people helping people, no change, $2,745.60. Savings, currently $6,244.01, an increase of a tremendous 16 cents. Estimated market value as of 1/12 of our Columbus Foundation account is $92,274.29. It's a gain since last year, December 31st, 2022, of $2,987.82. The total income deposited in the chapter checking accounts from the Columbus Foundation in 2023 was $6,400.50. And the payout so far of engagement benefit, which started in June, is $700. Notes the financial statement done, and that concludes the financial report.
Thank you, Lee. Do you want to go over the budget?
Well, maybe we
need to, okay, need to approve this. So anybody have any questions for Lee regarding the financial report? Any questions, any concerns, anything you all don't understand, you need Lee to explain? If there's no questions or concerns, would someone like to make a motion to approve the financial report? Erwin has moved. Is there a second? Okay. Who else said it? Troy. Let's let Troy have the second this time, Gail. You did. Okay. So Erwin made a motion. Troy seconded the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, the motion has been passed for the financial report. Now we'd like to move on to talk about the wonderful budget.
Well, we hope we have a good year here. But certainly last year we had a great year. So I'm going to do some background first. I mean, the chapter is supposed to spend its assets in support of the blind and visually impaired residents of the Central Ohio. Our chapter income comes primarily from the Columbus Foundation, not dues. Our funds in the Columbus Foundation are currently, as I mentioned, over $92,000. And the chapter receives income each year from that fund. Now, I had the opportunity to be in the ACB Ohio annual meeting, and I learned something there. We keep the Columbus chapter, we keep about 26 when they were talking back then in November, it was 29% of our assets of our chapter are held outside the Columbus Foundation, whereas ACB Ohio has 7% of their assets outside their Columbus Foundation accounts. I mean, there's more than one way to look at that. One is that they're living hand to mouth. The other way to look at it is that they're serving the blind and visually impaired residents of Ohio with all the money that they have at their command. Now, the next thing I want to look at is what is the trend of the Columbus chapter main checking account at the end of the year? As we go along, why is this important? We'll mention that. 2010, just after the Great Recession, we had $4,500. I mean, I'm not going into the pennies and cents here. I'm just going to say the round number. 2010, $4,500. 2015, $10,600. 2020, $15,986. In other words, $16,000. And in 2022, it was $20,800. At the end of last year, I mean, December 31st, we were down to $15,300. And that was on purpose because we budgeted to spend last year. So the notes to that are the Great Recession happened in 2008 and 9, and that sucked a bunch of money out of the chapter, and we didn't get large amounts from the Columbus Foundation in that period. And I can see from the accounting materials I have that they drew down the savings account at that period in order to keep some money in the checking account. Now, the funds in the main checking account between 2010 and 2022, well, we did fundraising. That is, Larry and Marty Honecker did fundraising from 2010 to about 2019, which helped support the chapter and their mission. And we ate a whole heck of a lot of chocolate. I mean, I can't imagine. And that averaged out to about $1,400 a year. I can't perfectly tell how much it was because they kind of mixed some things when they made deposits. But I know it was in that area, about $1,400 to $1,500 that the chapter benefited from their efforts. Then in 2020, as we all know, the pandemic happened. And I was a new treasurer, and what happened is I wanted to spend conservatively, so I did. So, which is why we went up about $5,000 from 2020 to 2022. And also the Columbus Foundation began coming through with really large grants because that's what the stock market was doing. The size of our Columbus Foundation account depends on the stock market. There's an income fund and also a stock fund. So in 2023, we decided as a chapter to increase our monetary support for our mission of improving the lives of blind and visually impaired residents of Central Ohio. And I recommend that we decide to continue spending heavily for one more year and to bring the main checking account down to under $10,000, which would be a new thing for us. So here's the round numbers that I'm proposing for a budget for 2024. Income of Columbus Foundation, well, income total about $6,450. Expenditures, I break that out into three categories. One I call support, $7,050. Another I call events, $5,000.
So these are expenditures because that word didn't come through. And so can you start this portion over again? Because
which part?
You restart with the expenditures because that word came through very faintly. And so yeah, we didn't quite catch the beginning of it. So
okay. All right. The income was $6,450, right? Expenditures.
yes, there we go.
And that categories, I break that down to three categories. Support, $7,050. Events, $5,700, and expenses, $1,100, which is where the budgeted loss for $7,400 comes from. Details of these categories. Income, of course, is mostly the Columbus Foundation. I'm estimating $5,500, and I've always been low every year as treasurer. Now, the other income the chapter gets is around $900. $300 or so of that is dues. there's somebody donating through Network for Good, and that's $228, amazingly. Anyway, and we get some random donations during the year, usually amounting to a couple $100. And however, in 2022, somebody gave us 1,000. So that's not a predictable category. And thank you very much for whoever gave us that donation. Now, support. What gets folded into there? Donations to organizations serving the blind and visually impaired. Last year, we gave $4,000 to organizations, a Voice Corps, Newsreel, matching funds account, ACB Ohio, and Pilot Dogs. And we could do that the same this year. Sunshine Committee is always about $300 a year. I don't know how they manage that. Apparently we just get sick at the same rate, I guess. Anyway, the PHP fund only needed about $1,000 last year, which to me means we have to find a way to get out there and market that more. But people are busy at times. And then the engagement benefit is the new kid on the block, and I'm estimating that at $1,750. Now, events. The categories there are state convention, national convention, Christmas celebration, summer celebration, and a CPR class, perhaps, and a festival or some other event which people would like to go to. State convention last year was $1,200 because we supported that by being a diamond sponsor. National convention, we've been paying for the, I guess it was the $35 fee for the basic attendance fee, and that comes out to $500. Christmas celebration, just estimate that at $2,000. And summer celebration is generally donor supported, so that's $0. And then last year we did Worcesterfest or Fall Fest or whatever on earth it was called. And we could do things like Dreams on Horseback again. We could do, I don't know, there are other ways we could provide an interesting benefit for our chapter members to, anyway, there's things that we can do. And then the CPR class cost just under $1,000 last year. Now expenses, breaking that down, meeting space is $400, Zoom is $150, AT&T is just under $200, and insurance, in case I run away with all the money, is $100. And then there's envelopes and stamps and some payment that has to be made to the state of Ohio every year, and that comes out to about $250. So that's
one thing one thing that I noticed, you may have accidentally skipped for the convention. You had 1,200. The door prizes, you forgot to mention those.
Yeah, that's the $200. Yes.
Yeah, but that was not clear when you read that. So.
Yeah, I didn't put that in a separate category. I just said state convention, $1,200, or I tried to say that.
He's saying that basically as the total, Sean. He didn't really break it down specifically. That's just the total.
Yeah.
Got it.
And a spreadsheet exists that has from our accounting program that has all of these things added up in detail as it was last year. I'm pretty much pegging everything in the current budget as carrying on from what we did last year.
Patrick
Simmons, so that's the conclusion. Surely there must be questions.
Vicky's hand is raised. Patrick Simmons is here as well.
Vicky, let Vicky go ahead and speak because her hand is raised.
I just wanted to mention you had $1,200 for the state convention in 2023, and depending on what we want to do as far as supporting or whatever for next year, we may want to budget a bit more because it will be in Indiana again. And that means transportation and that tends to raise costs of, of everything, as we all know. So, maybe we don't want to be a sponsor, but we want to pay for transportation. Maybe we want to do both. I just thought I'd throw that out there as a reminder.
I think that's a good reminder, Vicky. I think that's a very good reminder.
Yep. So there's a pot of, think of it, there's a pot of $1,200 sitting there, or at least $1,000 sitting there. Because we tend to do the $200 every year for the door prize thing, but hey, that could change too.
Yeah, it could and it can if need be. So, any other thoughts or concerns? Gail, hold on. Gail, we're gonna bring you the mic.
Okay. The CPR classes, that something that has to be done every year, or?
No, it doesn't. It's something that was offered, and it's something. If everybody wants to keep having that as something we do, then yes. But if not, it doesn't have to be done every year.
Well, I think.
May I speak to that? May I speak to that for a moment, please?
Oh, Denise.
First of all, hi there. When Leah's saying CPR, he's using a general term there. We're not looking at repeating the CPR class this coming year. We're simply offering the first aid class, which is offered by the same organization that taught the CPR class, if there are enough people interested.
Is it in the same place?
It's in the same place.
Which is non-ADA.
And
crickets. Is there any other place that they can do that would be ADA?
Somebody speak to the non-ADA piece, because I don't want to speak from a place of ignorance.
Non-ADA means basically it's not on the bus line.
I get that, but in terms of the cost, if somebody could speak to the cost piece.
Cost of transportation?
Well, that's going to depend on
where you
how
live.
far someone lives from it, because if something's non-ADA, then that means mainstream won't go there. So you have to use Userve or Uber or Lyft or something else.
Which is,
and that's going to be dependent from person to person.
Yeah.
It basically is $1 a mile.
If you use U-Serve, it's $1 a mile.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Maybe it would be useful to point out this class that the CPR class costs the chapter $64 a head.
Right.
So that's the investment the chapter is making. What about the investment the person is making?
That's a fair point.
Okay.
I think.
And while we're on that subject, if I may just say, if we do end up offering a first aid class, there were a few people who weren't able to attend, but the chapter ended up needing to absorb the cost. And going forward, whatever their deadline is for the roster of participants to be sent in is the deadline with which you're supported by the chapter for the class. But if you need to cancel past their deadline to turn in the roster so they know how many students to expect, then you're liable for the cost if you decide not to go.
There was a lady at the statewide that taught CPR, and she said she would come to the church. So I'm assuming she would do that for the first aid too. And I think I'm thinking she's a good bit cheaper than $64 a head, but I can't swear to it. But she did.
To respond to that, Mike, actually, no. The CPR classes cost more than that. But the one of our sponsors covered that cost for those who attended the convention and wanted to participate. So it actually did cost more.
Yeah, C3D covered a chunk of that.
And as generous as that was, if people wanted a certification card, they needed to pay a fee for that certification card.
Shirley's hand is raised, I believe.
Yes, Shirley.
Okay, I have a couple of things. First of all, in answer to Gail's question, she was asking, at least this is what I understood, and maybe I'm wrong. How often did you need to take the class every year? I thought when we took the class, they told us that we were good for 3 years, and then
It's
had
my understanding it's 2 years.
Yeah, it's
okay,
2
it was
years.
either
If you-
2 or 3. I'm not
Yes,
sure.
every 2 years you have to recertify your CPR.
Okay, so
certification.
that's
But we're
what
still
I
talking
thought
about
maybe-
first aid this time, not CPR.
Right, but she was asking about the CPR initially.
And I think
At
that's
least
probably,
that was-
she heard Lee use those words CPR
Okay.
when he was discussing the budget.
Well, I also thought it was because we had it and she wanted to know, for some of us when we had to be updated again, but maybe I'm wrong.
Also, I didn't know the
the-
details of what class would be taught this or projected
Okay.
to be taken this year.
Well, the other part was I think Lynn wanted me to sign him in also as being here at the meeting since we're both on
Oh,
Zoom.
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so Lynn is also here. Okay.
Any other questions regarding Lee's budget?
So Sean, I would like to propose possibly doing the Dreams on Horseback. I didn't understand back in 2016, 2017 what that was, and I'm really sad that I missed it. And there are probably other people who have either, didn't catch on to what it was at the time, or people who are new that would like to possibly do that again. I think that that's something I'd like to see possibly happening again.
Hey, people, can you hear Sean? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
yeah, we heard him. Anybody else have any thoughts about maybe how we could, use the chapter's money for good activities this year?
And remember that a budget's just a plan. It doesn't mean that the exact things that's in there happen. And every year, like last year, 2 things happened that I had no idea were coming down the pipe: the engagement benefit and the CPR class, and probably something else I didn't think about, So
Okay, there's
plans are
another-
plans, they're made to be changed.
There's another hand raised in Zoom, and I think it's somebody I accidentally
me?
labeled Shirley. Okay, that's Mary.
Oh.
So I'll try and fix that while you're talking.
So there's 2 of us, Shirley.
Well, at the moment, yes, because I broke it.
Shirley,
so.
you just. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I like that idea about the horseback riding because I don't know where I was. And I guess with Gail's point about the ADA, having the CPR class in a place where we can take mainstream to, and I don't think that was exactly addressed. So those are my 2 comments.
Very good point, Mary.
So thanks.
Well, let's handle that part separately, because again, the
Yeah.
budget's a plan. A
Yes.
proposal for the CPR class ought to be on the agenda today as well. Maybe we have time.
So, first of all, would people who didn't take the CPR class before, are there people interested in taking it, being able to get in there and become certified in CPR?
If we can please be very specific here that it's a first aid class.
So
Can
let
you
me ask a
describe the
question.
difference then?
Hold on. Let me ask a question. So CPR is CPR. So we've done that last year.
That's
correct?
right. That's correct.
So when you all did that, you all did not learn first aid, just CPR.
That is correct.
Okay, so now you're wanting to make it possibly for people to learn about first aid.
You're correct.
Okay. So in that case, who is interested in learning first aid? Especially
Melody and Troy are 2 people who already signed up. So, you can get feedback today as well.
okay, so
And we
Melody
can
and Troy.
keep establishing a list.
Okay.
If there's no real conflict with the chapter meeting, I would want to do the first day. This is Lee Tucker.
So,
Erwin as well.
so Lee, you're making the motion to do the first aid?
No, he's saying he'd like to participate in it as long as
Oh,
it doesn't, he's
participate,
not
okay.
motioning. He just wants to be.
Okay,
part
so
of it.
Lee wants to participate and Erwin wants to participate in first aid.
And I just wanted to comment to Lee's comment. I wanted to make a comment after what you said, Lee. We welcome having some sighted people because as adept and gifted as the instructors are, it's always helpful to get additional information when they're working with other people. So that's a second benefit to having you come.
Is there a date for this?
I'm not going to set a date until we have enough people to commit.
Okay.
But we will, and there were proposed dates when I brought it up a couple of months ago, but I only got 2 respondents. So I'll have to check again to see what's available now, because what was available then may no longer be available. They fill up their classes pretty quickly.
Well,
But the nice thing they're
we don't
willing to
have
do for us, if we have enough people, is that they can just specifically set up the class to meet the needs of people with vision impairment. So
It's something I should probably do for work, so I'm going to count myself as interested as sign up as well.
okay.
Yes, me too, Mary Carabinas.
So did I miss anybody else from today other than Sean and Mary
Erwin
and Lee?
And then Shirley, your hand is also raised.
Yes, this is Shirley, and it would depend on when you have it. If it's in the summer, Lynn and I would very possibly be interested. But if you have it before then, we probably wouldn't be there to do it. So.
And Shirley, when you say Lynn and I, does that mean Lynn? I should add Lynn's name as well.
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, and Denise, my attendance would be
Yes, he did
conditional
say he would like it added.
on it probably not being the second Saturday, unless it's in July.
Sure, got it. So it doesn't conflict with meetings. Yeah.
This is Chuck. I think I would also be interested.
Got it, Chuck.
Okay. I'm an engineer and I wasn't sure if my audio was unmuted.
You're here.
I like your ingenuity.
Oh, geez.
I'm not even sure if my computers are on half the time. So I think they're playing cards at night.
Swami of the switches, they call me.
Can we fold back to the budget for a minute?
Yes, sure. I was going to say that because we kind of. So go ahead, Lisa. You want to pull back to the budget?
All right. Are we at the point where a motion could be made to someone? I see a hand raised.
This is Sean. I propose we adopt the budget as planned, and things can change as the year goes, but I propose we adopt the budget as read.
And it's Erwin. I'll second that.
Okay, so Sean has made a motion to adopt the budget as planned for now, and Erwin has seconded that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there okay? Are there any wonderful nays? Any nays? Okay, the motion has passed for us to adopt the budget as it is at this point.
And I want to say that I'm proud of us for committing the amount of money that we are committing, because we didn't take the opportunity for a couple or 3 years to do more, and part of it is because I didn't understand really what our financial condition really was. So anyhow, let's keep helping the community that blind and visually impaired in the Central Ohio area.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Next we would like to, is Mary here to do the sunshine report? No?
I do not see
Mary Lynn, as you say.
Mary Lynn is herself sick, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So.
That never happens. Yeah.
Wow.
Did
Okay.
Okay. Did she provide a report to anyone?
Yes, I was a recipient of the Kroger card, and I'd like to thank the chapter for it, every little bit helps. So
Awesome.
it's a great benefit. And thank you again.
You're quite welcome.
It's Irwin. I'll just make this very brief because it could go on for an hour if I wanted to. But back in November, I had scheduled colon surgery. So I was in the hospital for 4 days, and it's taken me, well, good month and more to recover. So I'm pretty much back to normal, but nothing was found that was cancerous. So it was essentially successful, but not something, it was scheduled, but not something I really expected. But I'm glad to be mostly over it, and I'm mostly back to normal.
I'm very glad you're okay, Erwin. That's great news.
Thank you, Erwin,
Wow.
for sharing that. So, so a couple of things. So, Larry Hansen's mother passed away. So, and I believe she was 107.
Wow.
Oh,
Yes. And here in the last month, if I remember correctly, Nikki Hansen fell, and I think did she break her hand if I remember correctly? Lee? Oh, collarbone. Okay.
Pretty severe concussion.
Okay. So
And a severe concussion, just repeating for Zoom because Gail's.
and Nikki Hansen is usually the person that does the Sunshine Report.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
so she's down. Mary Lynn is down, and she was filling in for Nikki, and she's under the weather at the moment. Okay. Are there any other updates that we need to mention that have not been noted? Did you say something, Lee?
I will be having an MRI on Monday morning at 7:50 a.m. to find out why I have colon pain.
Okay. Thank
Good
you,
luck with
Troy. Is that
that.
Troy that said that? Thank you, Troy. Keep us posted, okay? Thank you. And for those who this is a past note, but for those who met my sweetheart, he had COVID over the holidays. And but he's better. He just has a cough we're trying to shake. And
I also had COVID. I got it the day after Christmas, and I just tested negative last week, and I'm back to work this week. Luckily for those around me, when I had COVID, I almost lost my voice.
yeah, that's what happened to
Present that
him.
nobody wants.
Yeah. So so I think that's everything regarding the Sunshine Report, since we really don't have our folks. I hope everybody gets better soon. So PHP.
PHP. The PHP committee met on December 7. We were discussing a couple of adjustments we wanted to make with the guidelines. We discussed what we want to do, but now we want to make sure the writing meets the understanding of each of the members, coincides with our understanding of what we are speaking of, and then we'll bring that into the meeting to share. Also, one person submitted an application. It wasn't a complete application, but the real glitch was that the person wasn't within the 90-day mark for the receipt wasn't within the 90 days needed to be able to be considered. And that person didn't have any awareness of PHP back. That person had said that they had no awareness of PHP back when they were interested, when they made the purchase. So it's just another cry for more marketing. So that's the end of the report.
Okay. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now can we have any information from ACB Ohio? Anybody that can speak?
Michelle, are you speaking or shall I speak? Or nobody will speak?
You are speaking.
Let me make sure that she is.
Is she taking the dogs out or something? Well, a couple of announcements that Michelle wouldn't probably know about anyway. Many of you may have seen an email going around from NLS, and for those of you who haven't or aren't on one of the email lists, as of now, Bard has a book limit, so you can download up to 250 items within a 30-day period. So that means audio and braille, and that means books and magazines. So 250 items. If you download something twice, that won't count. So it only counts as a once. But I don't think most people are going to have a problem with that number. Even I, who tend to be a bit crazy about downloading books, am probably not going to exceed 250 in a month.
So hang on a minute. That was going to be my next question. Is it per month or
Per
in
30-day
30 days?
period, which is essentially a month.
Yes.
Yeah, but it doesn't go. It can roll between.
I don't know that, Sean. That
Oh,
she
okay.
didn't mention that at all. So I don't know that. Let's say my 30 days starts on January 13th. Yours started on January 3rd. I don't know that that's going to make a difference.
My
It
guess
said it was a 30-day rolling period beginning February 6th.
Okay.
Okay.
So but again, I doubt that
Valentine's
it's
Day?
going to hurt anybody.
And this is not new. This is the way that the pilot used to work, and in that time it was 30 books in a 30-day period. So this
Yeah.
is not unprecedented.
Right. Lee, did you start to say something?
Nope, none. Sorry.
Oh, okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is, that Saturday, next Saturday, the 20th at 1 o'clock, ACB Ohio has a board meeting. Our board meetings are open to the public, so anyone is welcome to attend or part of the meeting. The Zoom ID is our office phone number, 614-261-3561. So if you're at all interested to know what ACB Ohio is planning for the upcoming year, and other kinds of things, do tune into that.
It's the same ID that we use for the membership call. So if you already have that, that same link will.
Our office number. It's the easiest way to remember.
That
it.
is the easiest way to
I
remember,
think.
but also the link for that
Good point.
will work.
Good point. As for Voice Corps, we're still doing our thing. We had Katie and Michelle on the first Wednesday, and it's a really good program. As always, we ended up having to stop before we were ready. There seems always to be more information than there is time. February's topic will be the community calls that ACB has been doing for the last 3 years. And as always, it's the first Wednesday, which is in February, the 7th at 11 a.m. We'll be doing that. So, and now, Michelle, if you're there and have anything else you want to talk about, like membership.
I'm sorry, I was across the room earlier. But yeah, membership deadlines, February 15th. I have most of the Columbus chapter already signed up for 2024, but there's still a few out there, and you can renew your membership through the website, acbohio.org. You can just call the office and I'll get you signed up and run your credit card. There's a few new members already. That's exciting. But yeah, membership deadline February 15th.
Oh, yes.
And as I recall, you're also accepting the Zelle app?
Yes. Well, I'm not sure about ACB Ohio, but the Columbus.
Yeah,
chapter
we're
is.
not. We're not, but I think Lee is. The Columbus chapter is, but
Or PayPal.
ACBO, we don't do Zelle yet.
Well, this is Chuck. Whatever I paid, I was able to. I think I used Apple Pay.
Yep, it came through. You're signed up.
Oh, cool.
And I had no idea what I was doing.
That it works.
None.
For a change.
She takes paper checks too,
Yeah.
because I gave her one and
Amazingly,
she didn't
still.
complain.
I
Paper
did.
check works.
Yep, you can send check, you can do Zelle, you can do PayPal, apparently you can do Apple Pay. So that's
quite interesting. Mary's hand is raised.
and cash, of
I
course.
just want to put a plug in for the Voice Corps program because it was very informative about membership and awards. And so if you can go back and Chuck, go back and listen to that again?
I think they can, but understand I'm not there as much as they used to be. So I
That's
would assume
true.
that they can. You might want to
So,
call
yeah,
the
that's
station
something.
and
I know
call the
that-
station and find out.
I know that in the past, the file for ACB Ohio was not always updated as often as it, in my opinion, ought to have been.
Will you let
so-
me know and I will take care of it when
Yeah,
I'm there on weekends?
Yeah,
That
I'll try and
crap has
I'll-
got to stop. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it and see.
I don't know
It's
what
still
they do.
kind of hard knowing it's Wednesday, so I'm a little slow, but yeah, it's worth noting that it's wonderful. Thanks to
can
Vicky.
put out because I have an appointment on my calendar because otherwise I wouldn't remember either. So what I can do is I should be able to send that as an attached iCal file or calendar appointment that people can put in. You might get a little bit annoyed because I have my alert times at 2 days before and 10 minutes before. Some people don't like that much notice, but it helps me. So I'll try and post those.
You know, I was just sitting here thinking, I wish there was a way, and maybe this is not a good idea. Won't be the first bad idea I've ever had. I wish there was a way that I could just do put it in a Dropbox in whatever that, I forget what that folder is that lets you my public folder and just send whoever wants a link to it. Would that be very complicated, or
I'm
am
not
I?
sure if they still use the public folder. I think for those of us who've had it a long time, we still have it, but I don't know if they still, because what was happening is people were putting up web pages and hacking people out of that folder.
Maybe explore
Oh.
that and get back
look
to
at
us
it.
next month or something.
Yeah. Because I would sure love to help with that. I mean, that's
One note, if I can jump in here, as for ACB Ohio, if you haven't heard, I was elected to the board, so I will be at the meeting next week myself.
congratulations.
And thanks. And
You're gonna put her to work too, believe me. Yeah.
How would you say? What was that? What?
She said we're gonna put you to work.
Oh no, I look, I've already been told I'm being put to. So speaking of work, I am working with Michelle to draft some marketing stuff so that we can get our name out there a little more to the community, especially to the younger crowd.
Janae,
Yes.
if I could interrupt for a second on that note, I thought of this just the other day. I am not sure. I used to have it somewhere. I know somebody, Larry, will have it. Several years ago, Columbus chapter put together a brochure, which we provided in Braille and print, whatever people needed to tell about the Columbus chapter and ACB Ohio in general.
Okay.
I'm sure we have a copy of that somewhere, and there might even be a copy of the files somewhere in the office computer or something.
I'll look
Um,
around, check the archives.
And
Yes, if you can find that, that would be great.
I'll check with Larry because Larry Honecker keeps everything, or Katie, she
There
keeps
was
everything.
there was a brochure because I remember it was in 2021 when I was there. I think it still had my name on it.
No, no, no,
but
no.
it would
This
need
is
to be.
not the ACB Ohio brochure. This
Oh,
was
is it?
specifically
Oh, for the Columbus
Columbus.
chapter. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
No, that was not the same thing at all. So
Got
we'll
it.
search for it, find it, and get it to you because, um, why reinvent the wheel?
Well, I want to see it because Michelle and I have been working on something. She has on her second revision of it, and I looked at it. I'm working with her on that. So if you can find that, that would be great because I've been talking to different people based on my network, trying to make sure that people are reminded that we are out here and we exist. So working hard on that.
Just making everyone aware that the speaker arrived for whatever we need to do to continue. And is there still that little break that you take right after the initial meeting?
Okay. Have just two more items I want to discuss. First of all, any old business we need to attend to. Anything that from last year, the things that you thought about over break. Anybody going once, going five, going 10?
One real quick thing.
Yes.
That is, thanks everybody for a great Christmas party. I think that was one of the most successful ones we've had.
I would agree with that actually. The staff was fantastic.
Yeah, Dustin did some good work with that.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed myself. It was great.
And I'm glad
Good
that
to
you all
hear.
were open.
And
to
the same
going-
with the Villanova that we did on New Year's Eve. That went really well.
I'm glad that you guys were open to going to somewhere different too. And I think, whenever possible, I feel like we should be going to, at least once a quarter somewhere that we don't normally go because the world still needs to know that we are out there and we exist. And we can't necessarily complain about what's not going well and right if we're not out there teaching them what is well and right for our population.
Yes, there are so many waitresses to train.
Well, and yeah, the one at Villanova was great because she figured out that different people were leaving.
Oh
at
yeah, she
different
was
times. So
fantastic.
she would say, "Okay, who's leaving at 7:15? Raise your hands, and I'll get your bills out." And then she did it a couple of other times throughout the
That's
evening, and yeah, it was great.
I always think we should always find ways to make things teachable moments all the time. So,
Mary
I
Candace.
just want to say real quick, the Villanova, the waitress was amazing, and I love the escape room, that we did at the conference.
the
And I
convention,
think
yes, that was
I heard several
extremely
people
fun.
say
That was fun.
I
That
wish
was-
I would have gone. So I went, but other people said, "No, I didn't go," and I wish I had. So that's my plug.
The escape room was a whole lot of fun. Makes you use your brain.
We'll let Rachel know that.
So let me get to these last two topics that I want to kind of put out there. I want to propose that we consider, just as I've been learning more about the history of this chapter and of the organization in my role, I would like for us to maybe consider bringing back two committees that used to exist. One was a program committee, and one had to do kind of maybe conjunction with marketing, fundraising, and we could kind of combine fundraising and marketing. Because we do have a Facebook page, and Catherine Vister used to help me manage that. And I don't mind managing it, but it would be great if I had some assistance every so often that I can show someone how to go in and post and how to go in and even just reshare information, because we had taken the time to make sure that we're following other pages that are share information that's applicable to the blind and visually impaired community. Because again, in this day and age, no matter what your organization is, whether it's large or small, having some kind of an online presence is important. So I would just like to put out there, I'd like us to consider to go back to maybe considering a program committee that, can help with things as far as not just activities, but speakers each month, and other things that we do, because we have to, continue to find creative ways to be engaged as an organization, as a chapter, and to move forward as an organization, as a chapter, so that, the chapter can continue to grow and be here another 60 or 40 or 100 years from now. And so I just want to put that out there. Anybody have any thoughts around a program committee or a fundraising committee or a marketing committee or even a membership committee for our chapter? Any thoughts?
Remember, I only do this 2 more years, so.
And same thing
Mem-
for, and that's
Membership committee was will need to happen.
yes, because Lee, this is his last term for treasurer, and that's the other thing. We got to find ways to get more people involved, because some of the tasks that are this is for any organization, not just us. It's nice if one person can do it, but it's better, together we can accomplish more. And so even whether it's with fundraising, marketing, membership programs, we need to have more than one hand on deck for things.
I propose we discuss this next time out of respect for the speaker's time.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say, is give people a chance to mull it over. And
so let's think about it, and we can talk about it next month. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
I second it.
Second.
I second it.
Okay, Chuck can have it.
Yep.
All
Thank
in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting has been adjourned.
He should only take 2 minutes to do the engagement benefit.
Just,
I should get started.
Are you telling me to go ahead and get started, or to wait for a couple minutes?
Just a couple minutes for the engagement benefit. Thank you.
Hi, Anne, welcome.
Thanks, Denise.
Is Strootman, am I saying your last name correctly?
Strootman.
Strootman, thank you. And they're taking this little break because they offer people some, there's chapter money set aside to support people with transportation. So they'll give people like $10 per person who are in attendance at the meeting to make that cost more affordable.
Around the room and do that.
Hmm?
They just go around and do that. It doesn't take very much time at all.
So
while we're doing that, go ahead and introduce the speaker, Denise. That's fine.
Well, it would be good if everybody was able to hear the information at the
all
same
done.
time.
So go ahead and introduce the speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Janae. All right. Okay. So today our speaker is Anne Strootman, and she oversees Wilderness Inquiry's comprehensive registration and assessment process, working with participants of all abilities to find a trip to accommodate their interests and abilities. She also manages disability organization partnership development. Each year, 40 to 50 organizations in the disability community partner with Wilderness Inquiry experiences in the outdoors, including day excursions, extended trips across the country. So anything from day excursions to extended trips across the country. She even finds time to lead a trip or two each season. And some of her favorite locations are the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness or the Olympic National Park. Prior to joining the Wilderness Inquiry team and work in public education, focusing on operational management and academic intervention in special education. Her work with students and families from diverse backgrounds and abilities well prepared her to implement the organization's mission to connect people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities to each other and the natural world through shared outdoor adventures. And Strootman participant and volunteer engagement manager is here now to speak with us about wilderness inquiry. Thank you, Anne.
Great. Thank you, Denise. Thank you all for inviting me to come and join and get a chance to share a little bit about what we do at Wilderness Inquiry. First thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and give a visual description of myself. I am a white woman in her early 50s. I have short brown hair. I wear glasses. And today I am bundled up against the cold of the Minnesota winter, wearing a purple sweater and a striped scarf. So Wilderness Inquiry, as Denise mentioned in that introduction, is a nonprofit organization. We really try to engage with people of all different kinds of backgrounds and reduce barriers to participation in outdoor recreation. We have been around since the late 1970s. Our founder really recognized that there were a lot of barriers for individuals with disabilities to get out into nature, especially into backcountry settings. During that time, the governor of Minnesota was really advocating to make some wilderness areas more accessible for people with disabilities. He actually was focusing his efforts on making paved trails in the Boundary Waters, which is a very unique area in northern Minnesota. He felt that if we paved trails and allowed motorized boats in that area, it would be accessible not only for people with disabilities, but also for women, which I thought was a really interesting take on what abilities he felt needed assistance. Greg, our founder, decided, you know what, I think we don't necessarily have to change the wilderness to make it accessible. Let's see if we can do a test trip with people of varying abilities without making changes to the wilderness, and maybe just change our approach in how we interact with it. So he gathered together a group of people. There was someone who had cerebral palsy, someone who had paraplegia, someone who was blind, and a few other folks that had other mobility challenges. And they went out to test their theory. They found ways to get folks across portages, ways to help them paddle, and were very successful in that trip. So that was kind of the inspiration for the beginning of our organization. Since that time, we have really progressed tremendously in how we help individuals with different disabilities to join us on our trips. I know on that first trip, Greg talks a lot about how there was one woman who used a wheelchair and she was determined to do it as very independently. She refused any help whatsoever. And in some cases, going across mud and rutted trails, she threw herself out of her wheelchair and literally crawled across the portage. Other times they would put folks on their backs and do kind of a piggyback style across the portages. I will say we've come a long way from that standpoint. We try to do everything very respectfully and with lots of dignity. We want people to be able to do things independently, but we also want them to be safe and feel that they're challenged, but that they're not overly challenged where it might be not safe. All right. So since that time, we have programmed with over 500,000 people. We've been around for over 45 years, which shows that it's a really large and growing organization. We've expanded our trip offerings to be outside of the upper Midwest. We used to only go to the Boundary Waters, maybe go kayaking in the Apostle Islands, which is on Lake Superior. But we now go across the country and actually across the world. And I'll get into the locations that we go a little bit later, but I want to talk a little bit about our philosophy regarding inclusion. We feel it's really important that everyone feels that they belong on one of our trips and that they are able to fully participate to the best of their ability. And we do that with great respect. So a great example of this is maybe somebody has a real affinity for liking to cook on a trip, but they don't have enough strength to be able to carry a lot of gear as we're moving from place to place. So in that scenario, we would really maybe just focus on what somebody's abilities are and have them become the camp cook for the week if that's what they'd like to do. And then someone else will pitch in on doing the heavy lifting. What we've really found is that our guides do a great job of really creating a great inclusive environment so that everyone feels like they have meaning on the trip, that they're all participating fully. And it takes everyone on the trip in order to be successful. It's not just people who have lots of strength, physical strength, but we really appreciate having people of all different backgrounds to have an enjoyable time. We've got 3 or 4 different types of trips that we offer. One is called Share the Adventure, and these are trips where people of all different backgrounds join together. So those are trips that you will find on our website. Anyone can register for any of those trips. If you want to join with family or friends, as long as they're all adults, you will find people of varying abilities with and without disabilities all together. We also have a family program called Families Together. That program, all of the trip itineraries are focused for families. Typically, I would say the children on those trips are anywhere from 5 years old to say 14 or 15. The reason that we started our family trips is we noticed a lot of families who maybe one member had a disability, specifically if a child had a disability. A lot of times when they would go on vacation together, the child with the disability would go off to a camp, and then the rest of the family would go and do their adventure. And we really wanted to create a way that a family could all travel together and feel supported. So what's really wonderful is to be able to see families where maybe one of the members has a disability, getting to meet other families that are in a similar situation. We've also noticed a trend of a lot of intergenerational families coming on trips. So perhaps it's grandparents, parents, and grandchildren all coming on a trip together and getting to know other families while they're with us. One of our newer programs that we've started in the last few years is called our Affinity Trips. We started to hear from some of our participants that while they love getting to know people of all different backgrounds and abilities, that sometimes they feel more comfortable traveling with an affinity group. So people that have a similar community background. For an example, we've had a really popular affinity group for women. So everyone on the trip identifies as a woman. All of the trip leaders leading the group are women, and it just creates a little bit different dynamic within the group. We've also have a BIPOC affinity trip program, LGBTQ, neurodiversity, and we've got a really growing program with the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing community as well. The part that I really am excited about is the fact that all of our trip leaders identify as part of the community that they are leading, which really makes for just a nice, safe place where everyone can come as their true, authentic self. They don't have to feel like they need to try to fit in because they are already a part of a community. Our last type of programming is what we affectionately call canoe mobile. That is typically more of a education-based program. It's place-based, meaning we bring giant rigs of canoes. We use canoes that fit 10 people. They're called North Canoes, and we bring those across the country. So most of the programming happens with youth, whether that's as a field trip for a school, but we will also come to different communities and do programming with just community members. So sometimes you'll see us on a weekend at a community event offering canoe rides, maybe a 10 to 15 minute canoe ride, so that people get a chance to really see what being outdoors and being on the water is all about. All right. Some of the other things that a lot of people like to learn or hear about wilderness inquiry is what are some of the things, or what are our tactics to working with people of varying abilities. I'm not going to go too deeply into some of the techniques that we use for perhaps mobility challenges, but since you are a group of folks who have some sort of vision loss, I wanted to focus on some of the specific things that we do for your community. A great example is we have a base camp in the Apostle Islands, and that's where we go sea kayaking on Lake Superior. Our base camp is one that we designed to be fully accessible. So all of our design features are universally designed. So what's good for someone with a disability is good for the entire group. Things that I love about the camp are the fact that we have tents that are up on raised platforms. We have ramps up onto those as well, so that someone using a wheelchair or maybe having some balance issues can easily navigate. The other thing that we will do is we will run lines from the various campsites to where the bathrooms are. So that's great for folks that have low vision. They're able to independently navigate, which I think is something that we always strive for. And as far as universal design goes, it's great for other individuals who have full vision. If they want to navigate in the dark, they're able to utilize that as well. Our staff are all also trained to be cognizant of how to give visual descriptors of what you're seeing as you're going on a hike. They practice during their new staff training how to give verbal directions with enough detail so that it's not dependent on sight in order to learn how to paddle a kayak or a canoe. We also have a really great volunteer network. We have a lot of volunteers that like to come on our trips specifically to support individuals who need extra help on a trip. So I'm thinking of an example. We actually just had a trip in November that went to New Zealand. We had a gentleman who was blind on that trip, and we paired him with an individual who served as his sighted guide. What's really exciting is not only how that experience affected the participant who was blind. He just loved being in a new place and getting to smell the different smells and hear the different sounds and be able to touch, all of the different parts of the hiking trail. But what the volunteer relayed to me was how much they learned, how they were able to experience a country in a entirely different way that was unique to them as well. So we find it's typically the volunteer almost has a more transformational experience than the person that is being assisted. All right, I'm going to pause here. So if there are any questions up to this point, feel free to jump in and ask those questions.
I have a question. My name's Janae. I'm the president of the chapter.
Yes.
When you were talking about the accommodation that you guys make in universal design, do you have Braille on like signs that's like maybe for the bathroom, for example? Do you have that for people who are
Yes.
blind?
Yes, we do. In fact, that's something that we did not have for a number of years and recently added. We have a staff member who is deafblind and has really given us more insight into areas that we need to improve. So in our headquarters, that has always been the case, and we've been adding that to the physical structures of our base camp as well.
Okay. Was just wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? All right. So hearing no questions,
I have a question.
go ahead. Oh, was there a question?
Yes, my name's Sean. I have a question. If someone wants to experience a trip like this, what costs are there associated for the participant?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up, Sean. There is a trip fee for all participants, and that is the expectation for all participants. If you decide that we need to have a little extra support on a trip, for the most part, it really depends on the destination. So typically the camping focused or paddling focused trips, because they're a little bit lower cost for participation, we have some endowment funding and also some grant funding to support bringing that additional support person on the trip. So there would be no additional fee for you. If it is a trip that is an international trip or outside of the continental United States, we have a trip to Hawaii. We can usually cover some of those fees, but we would just work with the participant to find out if there's, if we can support part of the additional trip fee, and if you can support part of that, we work with you to find a kind of a meeting ground there. All right, any other questions before I move on? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into talking a little bit about some of the places that we go. I know, Denise, I was taking a peek at your contact record in our database, and it looks like you've gone on a few different wilderness inquiry trips. So feel free to add any insights that you might have had when you were on the trips with us. So the first place I've already mentioned briefly, but this happens to be our most popular destination. It's called the Apostle Islands. The Apostle Islands are located in northern Wisconsin on Lake Superior. What's really unique about that area is there are an amazing set of sea caves that are along the shore, and a lot of one of the best ways to engage with those sea caves is by sea kayak. So we have kayaks, tandem kayaks, as part of our fleet, and we've actually had them specially designed. Even though they are designed for two people, we have an extra large cockpit in the middle that we can also utilize for participants who maybe can't actively paddle. So what that means is we would have two people actively paddling in the boat, mostly for safety. And then that middle cockpit can be for somebody who maybe isn't able to actively paddle or could paddle very lightly. but that allows them to fully participate to their ability level. The sea caves is usually the highlight of the trip, but we also do some paddling on some interior waterways in order to get a true sense of what it's like to be in Wisconsin. And then we also do some hiking in the area as well. On the Apostle Islands trips, we stay at our base camp, which I mentioned earlier, that is fully accessible, and then do day trips or day excursions to the various paddling spots. All right. One of my favorite trips that I've had the opportunity to lead is in Olympic National Park. This is a hiking focused trip. Olympic National Park is in the Pacific Northwest. Travelers usually fly into SeaTac into Seattle. And then we have a shuttle. We will pick you up. We've got a meeting point at one of the local hotels right next to the airport. And so the majority of people take that shuttle van with us, and then we drive to Olympic National Park and stay at Lake Crescent Lodge, which is a historic resort within the park boundaries. It's actually situated on a really beautiful lake. You're able to sit right on the shoreline. When I was last there, I remember all of the ducks coming out of the water and just hanging out, looking for a handout. But it was just a really beautiful setting. Olympic National Park is really unique because it has 3 distinct ecosystems. It has the traditional mountainous area. It has a rainforest, temperate rainforest, and then along the coast, you get a chance to experience coastal tide pools. One of the days we go to Ruby Beach or to Rotaldo Beach. You get to feel the spray of the waves coming in. A lot of times you will be able to experience some of the invertebrates that are in the tide pools, touching and feeling starfish. So it's a really amazing place to go. And we really tailor the hikes that we do based on the overability level of the group. We send 2 guides with us on that particular trip, which really gives us the ability that if we've got, maybe half the group is really gung-ho and wanting to go really far and fast, so one guide can go with them, and maybe the second part of the group maybe wants to linger a little bit, do a little bit slower paced hike. We can make those accommodations. We really try to make our itineraries very flexible so that we can make those changes to the itinerary just based on who is on the trip. One of my favorite things to be able to do with a group is everyone can do maybe an out and back hike. So we're all starting the hike together. And then maybe halfway through the group that maybe wants to go a little bit slower, maybe wants to take a little break. And then the faster part of the group can go ahead, come back, and then everyone can return together. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of our international destinations. We have a trip to Belize and Tikal in Guatemala. Belize is a gorgeous, gorgeous place. We go there. We usually have 2 trips every year. In fact, I think they're going out here at the beginning of February again. The majority of the trip is hiking based, but we also do some snorkeling and a little bit of gentle kayaking. And then, of course, we get a chance to see some of the ruins from the indigenous people of the area. We really like to be able to kind of take in some of the cultural history of the places that we visit as well. That trip is usually, our international trips are anywhere from 8 to 12 days in length. So you get a little bit more time in country than some of our domestic trips, which are usually anywhere from 4 to 6 days. did mention earlier about the Boundary Waters. The Boundary Waters is in northern Minnesota. It's a wilderness area. The majority of the area only allows non-motorized boat use. So either canoeing or kayaking is typically the mode of transportation. The Boundary Waters is a series of small lakes, and they're interconnected by short paths. We call those little trails portages. So it can be a pretty taxing trip from the standpoint of when you need to go from lake to lake. You have to unpack all of the gear that's in your boat and carry it across that portage, and then you have to carry the canoe across the portage to get to the next lake. We use a lightweight canoe that's made out of Kevlar, so the boats themselves are only about 40 pounds. And then the packs, we use something that are called Duluth packs. They carry a large amount of gear, and then they have straps, so it's like carrying a backpack. All right. One of the other national parks that we go to is Glacier National Park. This is a really popular family destination. So we have a camping version of that. But we also have a lodge-based version of the Glacier National Park trip. And typically it's just adults that select that lodge-based trip. Both trips are, both versions of the trip are hiking based. Glacier is very well known for a lot of animal sightings. The hiking is can be pretty adventurous as well. It's just a really gorgeous park with lots of different animals to encounter. All right, the next trip I'm going to talk about is Hawaii. We go to the Big Island, Hawaii's Big Island, for this trip. We actually have a couple of trips coming up in March to Hawaii. We are so lucky. The trip leader that we have for this particular trip has been leading trips for us for 30 years. Her name is Kath, and she has just amazing knowledge about all of the locations that we go to, including Hawaii. But she also just has a really wonderful way of creating group cohesion. Every time she comes back from a trip, I get evaluations in, and usually the highlight of the trip is getting to know Kath and learning about all the places that she's gone, and being so impressed with the knowledge of the area that you go to. Some of the highlights of the Hawaii trip include getting some time along the shore. We visit Volcanoes National Park. You get to walk through some lava tubes, do some snorkeling. So really a nice mixture of hiking and other kind of water sports that are really popular in Hawaii. All right, so if you haven't figured it out, I'm kind of going in alphabetical order. So I'm sorry if I'm jumping from international trip to national trip to camping trip, but next on my list is Iceland. We usually do the Iceland trip at the end of August. This is a really great time to go. You may even get a glimpse of having some volcanoes erupt. I know there's been some volcano action this winter. When we go to Iceland, we do partner with a driver who ferries us around the island, and he actually has quite a bit of knowledge as well, in addition to the leader that brings you on the trip. When we're in Iceland, we typically stay at small, locally owned boutique or Airbnb type of lodging. One of the things we really love to do, especially on our international trips, is make sure that we're staying in more local places versus large resorts. We feel like you get a better sense of what the country's all about. Usually it's a little bit more remote, so you get to really get an eco-tourist version of the trip. And we also feel it's important to be able to support the local economy. I did mention a little earlier about New Zealand. New Zealand, we typically run that trip. I think this year we have it scheduled in November or maybe early December, because that is summertime in New Zealand. We do this as a hiking based trip. Although there is opportunity, I believe they do a little bit of kayaking on that trip as well. The mountains in New Zealand are just amazing. I can't speak to it personally. I haven't had the opportunity to go yet, but the feedback that I get from travelers there talk about it being really a once in a lifetime opportunity. As I mentioned, we've got a trip coming up later this year, and let's see, what else can I tell you about New Zealand? Oh, I was going to mention also, the last two trips that we've actually had blind participants on both of those trips. This last fall, it was a gentleman who was traveling there independently, solo traveler. The year before was a woman who has traveled with us in the past, and she just raved about how each trip that she goes on with us, it just seems to get better and better, which I think is always a fantastic review. So the next international destination I'll talk about is Peru. The highlight of going to Peru is going to Machu Picchu. We do have this scheduled for this March. We actually have a little discount available right now that if you register for Peru by the end of January, you will get 10% off of your registration fee, which is a nice perk. Peru is primarily hiking based as well. Our group sizes, I will also mention on these international trips, are usually quite small. We usually have anywhere from 8 to 10 people on them. So you really get a chance to get to know your fellow travelers. Just a couple more to go. The Superior Hiking Trail. So this is an upper Midwest destination. The Superior Hiking Trail runs along the Lake Superior on the Minnesota side. So it starts kind of south of Duluth, if you're familiar with Minnesota, and then runs almost all the way to the border of Canada. We typically do a section of the trail that's kind of in the middle. It's a really unique trail. There's some parts of it that are fairly easy to navigate, others that are really challenging to navigate. We have a couple different versions of that. We can either do a backpacking trip, or we do also have a lodge-based version, so that if you want to do day hikes and then go and relax in the lodge at night, that's also available. One of the newer trips that we've added, that is, speaking of backpacking, we actually have a trip now going to Isle Royale, which is also Lake Superior. What's unique about Isle Royale is that it is only accessible from a boat, or you have to fly in. So we take a ferry out of Grand Portage, Minnesota, and then do, I believe it's a 5 or 6 day backpacking hike around the island. Okay. So the last international trip I'll talk about is one of our African trips. We have a really unique connection to Tanzania. We met a person who is a elephant researcher in Tanzania, and he now kind of organizes our trips in Tanzania. He has a long list of very experienced guides that drive us around on various safaris. I was actually lucky enough to get to go on this trip last summer, got to see it and be on it myself. So I love talking about Tanzania. We stay in the northern portion of the country. So highlights include going to the Serengeti, where you get to see elephants, giraffes, wildebeests, zebras, maybe in a lion or two. We actually got to see a wildebeest river crossing, which was absolutely amazing. And then we get down into the Ngorongoro crater, and you get to see even more animals, including water buffalo, Cape buffalo. You get a chance to see the potential of seeing a rhino, flamingos. And then we kind of do a route so that we're able to get into a few of the other national parks before heading back to Arusha, which is close to Mount Kilimanjaro. And then the last national park I'll talk about is Yellowstone. Yellowstone is a very, very popular destination for families. We camp within the national park in one of the group sites, and then we do day excursions to various parts of the park. So highlights of that trip, of course, we always go to check out the geysers, Old Faithful. We get into Lamar Valley and Hayden Valley, where there's potential to be able to interact or at least view some of the larger mammals like bison, maybe some elk. We also go to one of the rivers that are really unique, where there's two rivers coming together. There's a river that has really cold water coming off the mountain, and then there's one that's fed by a hot spring. And so one of the highlights, especially for families, is the kids like to go wading in that area so they can feel the warm water and the cold water meeting together. We also do some hiking on that trip, some very, I would say, kind of light hiking, but we try to get off the beaten path to avoid the crowds because Yellowstone is one of the busier national parks. All right, so there is the section about learning about some of our destinations. I'm going to go ahead and open up to questions, comments, whatever you would like.
Well, this is Denise, and I will say that I enjoyed every one of the trips that I took part in. The Superior Trail, Lake Superior Trail with all women was a really lovely communal experience. When my son was 25, I thought this will be the last mother-son opportunity, to do something together. So we went to Costa Rica. And although he didn't speak Spanish, he initiated soccer games on this little island, Lake Paradise, that we were staying. And that was fun to see. And I also went to an Olympic National Park, and we backpacked the entire time. And so we got to stay in each of those three areas that she described. And when we slept by the ocean, you could hear the sea lions all night. Now, I think it might be lodge-based now, but it's a lovely place to be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Denise. I will
Deshawn,
mention.
have you ever thought of doing like a British Isles cruise, like Ireland and places like that? Or not cruise, but I guess a trip.
Right, right. You know, that's not on the current list, but I know that we are continually adding new destinations. So I'll add that as a suggestion. We'll see what happens. I believe I just heard some murmuring around the office that they're starting to get a Scottish tour pulled together as well. So kind of keep that one as one I'm thinking maybe will be added in 2025.
And one thing I'm curious about, you mentioned bringing canoes to another community, somewhere in the country. Like if our chapter wanted to experience canoeing, for instance, would there be a way to work that out with your group if we could find a location that seemed reasonable?
Right. Yeah, we typically in the fall we do get into Ohio. I believe think right now mostly in Dayton is kind of one of the spots that we go to, but a lot of times we can kind of look to see what the current schedule looks like and either, you know, come to another community on the way there or on the way back. But yeah, we definitely if that were of an interest, I could certainly look into getting that that pulled together for you.
Okay. Any other questions for Anne? I'll take that, given how quiet it is, that she did such a
She's
thorough
asking,
job. of
Erwin asked, what's the website again? What's the website?
Sure. So it's wildernessinquiry.org.
You got it. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank you for such a thorough presentation. I felt like I was already experiencing the trips, even sitting in my own home. So it's inspiring me to want to plan my next one.
There you go. All right. Well, I will sign off then. Thank you again so much. And Denise has my contact information. So if you have any specific questions that you would like to ask me outside of this, I'm happy to respond to those.